Ryan Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
Nice. 8:07 on the Morning Majority. Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham here, and Tucker Carlson. Good morning, Tucker.
Good morning.
Hello. You're part of my informal survey now about the word of the day. Do you know what sanguine means?
Sanguine? Yeah, I think so.
It means to feel good about. Be hopeful, right?
Peaceful?
Yeah. So, anyway, I used it in the last segment. People looked at me like I was crazy.
So where did that word come from? That's a $9 word. No, it's not in my normal vocabulary. I really love language, and I love words.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's okay. So, you guys back off of me and my vocabulary, else I'll get obstreperous about it.
Well, that's what a Harvard education will do for you.
So, the Democrats getting a little mouthy about Tea Partiers in the wake of this debt deal. We've come upon the new talking point, which is hostage takers. How do you feel? Are you a hostage taker? How do you feel about it?
No, I'm merely a bewildered bystander, but I have to say, if you take 3 steps back, I mean, this deal does virtually nothing to cut the debt long term. We're going to wind up with a lot more debt 10 years from now under this plan than we have now.
Yep.
It'll not do one single thing to entitlements, which are the main driver of the debt, and it cuts only, $21 billion the first year, which is like nothing. So why are they freaking out over this?
I know, it's frighteningly little, and yet it's hailed as by liberals at least, as some sort of draconian measure.
Right, so that kind of, because it might make, some recipients of student loans pay some interest on the loans. I mean, it's disproportionate. I mean, look, you can disagree with, this plan from the left, but to go so completely over the edge suggests to me a strategy. It suggests that, they're basically laying down the marker. What they really care about is benefits. They don't want to see any Social Security and particularly Medicare benefits cut, and they don't because their base, relies on them, I guess.
We're going to talk more about this in a moment, but I'm not very sanguine about the language being used by the left right now. I mean, we yesterday we had a press conference, and with the FAA situation and then Republicans were described as hostage takers, as holding a gun to the head of the federal government and government employees. We've had Maureen Dowd out there talking about vampires, and we've had we even have this wonderful piece of tape we're going to go back to in just a little bit of Martin Bashir talking to a psychologist on MSNBC, saying that basically the Tea Partiers and those who believed we should balance our budget, well, they need psychoanalysis. They have psychoses. They're crazy. It's gotten completely out of control.
Yeah, I mean, that's prima facie of mental illness, right? Anyone who'd be concerned about, $14 trillion in debt is obviously deranged. I mean, I don't know what to say other than, it's a parody of a hysterical response. And I think, again, it's part of a strategy. Look, at some point we're going to have to cut entitlements, and I think the left is trying to, make the point that we'll do everything we possibly can to not even have that conversation.
Were you surprised by how weak Obama came out of these negotiations looking, even though it is there's such little progress in this deal? Obama comes out with hardly a hand in it at all. Were you surprised by his
No, I wasn't. I mean, that was, as you remember, this was sort of the way he handled health care.
Yeah.
At the beginning, and then at various periods during the negotiations, he would sort of step out and raise his hands and say, you know what, dude, everyone else in this debate's a child. I'm the only adult here, but I'm going to step back and let the children squabble. I mean, he had this, he has this kind of supercilious, certainly arrogant posture that I think he thinks is appealing. I think he thinks, I'm the adult here. But it winds up, in my view, making him look like he's disengaged and weak.
Well, liberals, I find, who are upset with him are confused about whether he's just an incompetent negotiator or he doesn't care about liberal ideas. Which do you think?
Well, I think he cares about liberal ideas. I mean, I've never thought that Barack Obama was particularly impressive as a politician. I mean, I don't, he doesn't have a ton of experience, for one thing. The guy was like some kind of part-time law professor, door knocker, community activist or whatever, but he hasn't spent 30 years in politics. So, I've never seen any evidence, in contrast to, say, Biden, who's actually pretty good at politics, that he's like a master negotiator, like Tip O'Neill or something.
Right.
I don't think he really knows what he's doing, to be totally honest.
You mentioned the vice president's name, and he's sort of gotten in hot water of late.
Yeah.
Over this, he apparently said that what was the term that they were terrorists. Yeah, that's right. That those in the Tea Party were terrorists. They were practicing terrorism. Then, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong. If you have a different understanding of this, I'm glad to have my knowledge clarified on this. He then said, "No, I didn't say it." And then 4 people walked out of the room and said, "Oh yeah, he said it." And then he was yesterday at the White House. They sort of admitted that he said it, but wouldn't explain why he wouldn't apologize for it, even though he thought the language was inappropriate.
Yeah, I don't know the truth of it. I know that the vice president is one of those guys who kind of says what he thinks in all circumstances. So I guess I wouldn't be completely surprised. However, I think all the focus on Biden obscures the fact that he's probably the smartest guy in this administration. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, the White House uses Biden as a foil. They actually hold him up and make fun of him, and, oh, that Joe Biden is going off again. But the truth is, Biden's a lot smarter than Obama. He knows a lot more about policy. He knows a lot more about politics. I think he's got better judgment. I think we'd be in much better shape if we had Biden as president. I know no one wants to say that, but I think it's true.
And we'd be having a lot more fun covering him.
Oh, definitely.
A quick question.
Biden is at least a charming guy. He's not this cold, distant character like the president.
On the Ames straw poll, Pawlenty struggling, Bachmann trying to make a play, Santorum giving out free peach jelly homemade from his trees at home. Is that going to take him over the top?
It's not the most desperate thing I've seen at the Iowa straw poll in Ames. I remember when Steve Forbes offered free balloon rides.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it's going to be enough. Look, it's just they buy a win at the Iowa straw poll. I wish the press would stop pretending it's dispositive or super. I mean, we're sending a reporter, I'll admit it, but we probably shouldn't be.
Well, Tucker Carlson, who was recently thrown into a pool, I'm understanding, by interns over there at the Daily Caller, and he's been described as squirming and shaking like a noodled catfish.
Yeah, that's completely false. Completely false. I was not shaking. I fought like an animal, and they weren't. they were not interns. They were actually our employees.
And really?
And they're young and spry and fast. Those young employees.
Yeah, they are. But I mean, literally, I put up a real struggle. I was like a honey badger in the face of this.
Yeah. You don't care.
Yeah. Right.
When I see it on YouTube, I'll believe it.
That's
Tucker.
right.